What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another live stream here on Mets Central, as I am live on Twitter, as well as we are going to break down the latest Mets signing as they've acquired AJ Minter from free agency on a 2-year deal with an opt-out after this year for the player, and it is an $11 million AAV, making it $22 million total. As they strengthen their bullpen, before we jump into everything, please be sure to leave a like on your way into the live stream, or if you're watching on replay, even subscribe if you guys are new to the channel, especially if you're Met fans, and turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live here on the channel. But we got a lot to get into with AJ Minter because I'm honestly surprised they even went this direction, and this does definitely back up what we saw yesterday, as Andy Martino was reporting that the New York Mets are looking to pivot a little bit and go to plan B, as he phrased it, of the offseason, as that is, a future without Pete Alonso. And he mentioned that they're looking to add some top-end relievers, and, I had to see it to believe it type thing with, David Stearns at the helm, and I really was convinced this entire offseason, and I'll definitely eat crow on this one, and I'm honestly happy to an extent, because I do still feel a little, I have mixed feelings with, this route and everything, but I will say that I am definitely pleasantly surprised that the Mets are going this route of signing some top-end arms. And again, I'll eat crow on that one because I really didn't think the Mets were going to go in this direction, especially with David Stearns at the helm. I thought there was no way the Mets were going to even really add to the bullpen. I thought maybe they'd get a guy on like a 1-year deal making around 7-8 million type deal or something along those lines, like bring back Stanek, Raley, and then that was really going to be about it. I didn't think they were going to go in the direction of adding a guy like Minter or Tanner Scott, who they were linked to up until this signing, which Mike Puma then ended up saying that the Mets are not going to pursue Tanner Scott anymore, which makes complete sense because now they got their lefty for the bullpen. And I always felt, all right, maybe they'll get someone with good reverse splits like a David Robertson. Well, now if you look at it, they save money by not getting Tanner Scott here, and maybe there's a world where the Mets do go the route of adding both Minter and they add a David Robertson or a Kirby Yates to the back end of the bullpen. And, if they add Minter with one of those two guys, then you're really looking at this bullpen being one of the best in baseball, because then you're talking about Minter being back there with Diaz, and then Robertson is there, which we were hoping to get in 2023, or Yates, who has the ability to close out games, both of them with New York experience, of course. And then you have Minter and Nunez being, your high leverage arms that could also really fall into place there. And you still have Reed Garrett in the fold. You have Jose Budo around as well. And then you still have guys like Danny Young lingering around the bullpen, which I'm so glad he's not the primary lefty anymore, which he was fine for what he was this past year, which is a solid left-handed arm, but you need more than that against the higher leverage guys in this division, especially. And it couldn't just be Diaz. They needed to get a guy that could get those high leverage outs. They missed it with Brooks Raley going down last year, and now they have it with AJ Minter. And there are definitely injury concerns, but there also would have been if they brought back Brooks Raley. So, it's hard to sit here and complain when no matter what route they went, there would have been concerns, because if they went the Tanner Scott route, we would have been concerned about the contract. Plus, that would give them way less flexibility to go the route of, signing another arm or two, which I'll say this as well. If the Mets were to go the route here now, if one of two things I should say occur. If the Mets don't sign another arm for the bullpen by saving with Minter, I'll be disappointed a little bit. The other thing is, if Tanner Scott is making less than $17 million annually on a shorter term deal, like 2 to 3 year deal, then I'll also be a little more upset with this, because at that point I would have rather bring in Tanner Scott. However, when you look at this deal, I think this is fair for the player, fair for the Mets, especially because, again, they were looking in that direction potentially of bringing in a Tanner Scott. I would rather them save a little bit financially, and it gives them the flexibility to add another bat if need be. It gives them the flexibility, like I've been mentioning all episode, to add another arm to the bullpen. The point that I was making before, there are injury concerns with AJ Minter, which I'm not going to shy away from it being a worry, which is the hip injury that everyone is referring to, and it has caused his velocity to go down over the past few seasons more and more and more, because if you look at his four seam velo in 2022, he was sitting around 97, and then 2023 that dropped to around 96, and then this past year around 95, which was in a limited sample size, but still enough to take away as, you know, what he was for this past year. And that does worry me a little bit, but maybe there is a correlation that the hip injury was, you know, the thing that was factoring into the you know, his velocity dropping, and maybe the hip being fixed will get him to touch around 97 again, which if that's the case and you get what he was in 2022, then you're looking at one of the best relievers in all baseball. But even if you get what he was last year over a full season, I would absolutely take that and run with it, because he still had a very productive season. The FIP does scare me a little bit, but you look at the ERA, you know, which I'm not a big ERA guy, especially with relievers, but in 34 innings had a 2.62, a 4.45 FIP, which again does worry me a little bit, but a 1.02 WHIP, which is really nice to see. And then a strikeout percentage of 26.1%, a walk percentage of 8.2%. And I did want to pull up some of his previous numbers in terms of, you know, previous seasons, because, you know, the FIP was worrisome last year, but if you look at the year prior, you know, 2.90, 2.13, 2.69, he's been one of the most consistent guys in baseball. And the thing that I love about Minter is he does not walk too many batters compared to what this bullpen has dealt with. The walks per nine is a little up there. That was a little up there this past year and the year prior. But like I said, I mean, if the velocity gets to where it was in 2022, or at least close to it, you're looking at a legit top-end reliever, because he was a 2-WAR player that year as well, and that was definitely his best season. But even if you got what he was in 2023, you take that and run with it. You know, his ERA was a little higher, but his FIP was lower, which maybe, you know, with a better defense behind him could work out here. His walk numbers were a little bit higher, but he limits the long ball, strikes a lot of batters out. So there is the scare of him getting in trouble at times, but that's any relief pitcher, which, you know, that's just the reality of it. In terms of the pitch mix, he utilizes 3 different pitches. He has a 4-seam fastball, a cutter, and a changeup. All of them grade out to above average or well above average. And that is, of course, looking at even this past season with the velocity going down with him. And if you look in terms of what was getting teed off of the most, really not a lot, but, you know, his 4-seam, of course, was prone a little bit at points to the long ball, but so was his cutter, which he only allowed 6 home runs all season, again, albeit a smaller sample size. But even if you look at the season prior, 4 home runs off his 4-seam, and then 2 against his cutter, really limits the long ball, which is something that I do like about him quite a bit. But yeah, I'm absolutely excited about this. I do want to get some of the data from his 2023 season, but for everyone tuning in, like I said, leave a like if you have not already, subscribe, turn on your notifications, all that other stuff, as we will, of course, be discussing more about this AJ Minter signing, as well as, you know, potentially where the Mets go with the life after Pete Alonso, that it's looking like we're headed in that direction right now. But yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at prior seasons. His 4-seam definitely graded out a little bit better in 2023. Yeah, just looking at the IVB and stuff like that. 16.7 on the 4-seam, 3.0 on the cutter, 5.1 on the changeup there in terms of IVB and stuff like that, but definitely doesn't utilize his changeup as much as I thought he would, which I would think would be his pitch to really generate the swing and miss stuff, which it probably still is, but just was, you know, figured he maybe would have utilized it more, although he does generate a good amount of it with the cutter as well, if we're just looking at where he really maximizes, you know, his arsenal here. I don't know why I lost my train of thought, but yeah, just that with that sort of deal. But I'm excited about this. I really am. He is definitely one of the higher paid relief pitchers now in all baseball, which I don't love, which is also why I'm a little surprised they went this direction. But at the same time, they had to add to this bullpen, because last year the circle of trust became literally just a two-man rotation between Stanek and Diaz come the playoffs, and you saw how much that burnt the bullpen out by the end of the year. And I would still love if they brought back Stanek. I would love if they brought back Stanek and got David Robertson or Kirby Yates. I would be absolutely in love with where this bullpen is. But even if they don't, this is definitely the bullpen definitely looks better going into this year versus last year, because last year I thought the bullpen was one of the strengths going into the season, but man, a lot went wrong because Ottavino's decline went even further off a cliff, which was expected, but it definitely was really, really ugly to the point where he wasn't even getting any high leverage out. At least in 2023, he was giving you some. And then, of course, going into that, you had Tonkin, who ended up going away. Jorge Lopez, we know what happened there. The bullpen just fell apart relatively quickly. This year, there's definitely more of a sure thing in terms of what you're getting with this bullpen. You got Diaz, Budo, now Minter, Garrett, Nunez, Young, Sean Reed-Foley's in the mix, Brazabon, McGill, and then you still have Canning, who maybe is going to be in the bullpen, or Cabrera. So it's shaping out nicely, this bullpen. Definitely is, which I absolutely love. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of work still to be done, of course, with this roster between the bullpen and the lineup itself, because now that they brought Winker back, now that they've also added Minter, I'm really looking at the next acquisition being a bat. But this does show that everyone that's counting Stearns out and saying that, well, you know, he's really being lazy and stuff like that, shows that he's active, and it shows that he's serious about having a backup plan here to the life after Pete Alonso, which I absolutely love. And, you know, we'll see where that goes in terms of the first base market or in terms of the lineup, whether that's acquiring a Yandy Diaz, whether that's acquiring a Santander, Nolan Arenado, whatever that might be. The point is, they are working, and they're very active, as now we got back-to-back signings and back-to-back days, which is also definitely throwing me off, because I went out today before I went live here thinking there was nothing that was going to happen today, even though I knew the risk of potentially Alonso signing. I thought, all right, well, I think that I'm a little bit safe until maybe tomorrow, because, of course, during football and when I have to watch hockey, that would be naturally when things start to unfold. But Stearns and crew had other plans, and again, I'm not complaining, but it's just unfortunate that I couldn't go live here right away with this one. I'm just trying to look a little bit more at some of the information here with Minter, as again, I'm really stoked about this one. Really am, because I'm just surprised too. I really am, because I genuinely didn't believe that they were gonna go in this direction. I do want to see though where he ranks among relief pitchers on contract in terms of contracts now with the AAV. He ranks in the top 10 now. So in terms of, if you want to look at where he ranks, you have Diaz number 1, haters here. Taiwan Walker's listed here, but I won't count that. Presley, Iglesias, Maeda's here, which I won't count either because he was signed to be a starter. Hoffman, similar deal to him, which I would take Minter with the concerns right now with Hoffman. Taylor Rogers, Robert Stevenson, and then now you got Minter here. Trinan is in this range. Chapman's just below. It just seems like this is the reliever market right now. It just does. So I'm completely fine with this in that regard. Nunez in the 8th inning now. it depends on the situational, or the situation rather. It really depends on that because as we saw last year, the Mets were really utilizing their bullpen in terms of the favor of the matchups there, which is what I would love them to continue to do because I don't like designating roles with the bullpen, and I'd love the Mets to not do that because put your best arms against the best hitters and put your lower leverage arms against the lower part of the order. That's how I feel. I'm just looking at some of the information, and if you guys want a good follow, by the way, on Twitter, follow at Isaac Groffman, who does excellent work with pitching breakdowns on his Twitter page, and I reposted the tweet that he put out. So if you guys want to check that, you could go to my Twitter page as well at Core Python to find this data. But he was saying he put a thread out about AJ Minter just now and put where he could put the improvements in. And a lot of it's similar to what I was saying before about getting him back to 2022, although I didn't say this part. He's saying lowering the arm angle could help him get back to that, which I thought maybe it was a correlation with the hip, but the arm angle, yeah, he did use a lower arm angle 2022. So lowering the arm angle could definitely help him get back to that. He's saying he should decrease the fastball usage, increase the cutter usage and the changeup usage, and then add a new breaking ball pitch to utilize. I don't know if he's got to add another pitch, which it would help, but I think that if he did cut back a little bit on the fastball usage, that could help. Either that or, like he said in the thread, lower the arm angle to help make it a little bit more effective. I do agree, though. I'd like to see him use his changeup a bit more to help be a little bit more deceptive, especially if he's going to lose the velocity, especially if his velocity is lost on the four seam. I think that would help him out there. But yeah, I think that's really going to be it in terms of what I have to say here. I'm not going to be live too long just because of the fact that it is a reliever signing at the end of the day. There's only so much really to dissect and talk about, and I kind of already went down the Alonso rabbit hole yesterday, and then the day before we went live doing this Mets podcast, so it's been a crazy past 3 days. Went from doing basically no live streams because the off season was moving slow to now doing live streams pretty much every day. But yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done. At some point, Alonso's going to make a decision. It's probably going to be very soon, to be completely honest with you. So I'm very curious to see where that goes. But yeah, the Mets add Minter, and again, my final thoughts, I definitely worry a bit about the hip injury, but if you want a positive, David Peterson had hip surgery and then he performed better, which I have questions about him still, but either way, he performed better after that, and maybe that will get Minter a little bit back on track. And at his worst, I still think he's one of the best relievers in this bullpen. I think he is, and maybe he's a little overpaid then at that point, but he's still going to be one of the better relievers in this bullpen. But that is going to be it for me. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do not forget to leave a like if you haven't. Don't forget to subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live here on Met Central, and I'll see you guys in the next one.